I knew something in my life had shifted the morning I realized I was scared to open my own mailbox. Not because of bills or bad news, because I didn't know what my brother had signed me up for this time. Credit cards, charity pledges, magazine subscriptions I never asked for. All of it in my name, all of it delivered to my apartment like proof that my boundaries didn't matter. And the worst part was how normal it had started to feel, like this was simply the cost of being related to him. I'm a 32-year-old warehouse supervisor in Indiana. Stable job, small one-bedroom place, predictable routines, nothing glamorous. I work early mornings, keep to myself, pay my bills on time. My life used to be simple in a way that felt safe. My older brother Mason was the chaotic opposite. Growing up, he had this talent for getting himself into a mess and dragging someone else with him, usually me. Our parents always said, he just needs guidance, which meant I was the unpaid guidance counselor, bank account, and moral support team rolled into one. For years, I convinced myself it was temporary. He'd grow out of it. He'd get serious. He'd stop lying, stop borrowing, stop using my name whenever it benefited him. But Mason didn't grow out of anything. He grew into it. Every time he apologized, he'd hug me too tight, promise this was the last time, and then treat that promise like a coupon he could throw out once it expired. The early warning signs were small things. He asked to borrow my car for a job interview, brought it back with the gas tank empty. He used my Netflix account and changed the password. He forgot to return tools he borrowed from my place, then got offended when I asked about them. I kept brushing it off because that's what I'd been conditioned to do. He's family. He needs help. He'll figure it out eventually. But somewhere in the last year, the tone shifted. Mason discovered how easy it was to sign up for things online using just my name, my email, or my address. At first, I thought it was junk mail. Then I noticed the welcome new member letters, a prepaid Visa card activation code, a gym membership confirmation. My name slapped on account after account I'd never created. I confronted him more than once, and every time he laughed like it was some harmless joke. "Relax," he'd say. "They make it way too easy, and you'll cancel it anyway, right?" That line stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. It wasn't just the inconvenience, it was the entitlement. The way he saw my time, privacy, and credit as resources he could dip into whenever he felt like it. And for the first time, I started feeling the simmer of resentment I used to swallow whole. The blowing point began with something my building manager mentioned in passing. I was coming home from work, exhausted and ready to collapse on the couch, when he caught me in the hallway. "Hey," he said casually, "your brother stopped by again today. He said he needed to look at your mailbox because you signed up for some financial thing together." My stomach dropped. Mason didn't have a key to my building. He must have followed someone inside. He must have used my address again. And now he was trying to get into my mail, federally protected mail, with some made-up excuse. I forced a polite smile and nodded, but my hands were shaking by the time I reached my apartment. I sat on the couch for a long minute, trying to slow my breathing. Then I checked the mailbox myself. Inside was a thick envelope with my name on it. A loan application. Approved. Pending my signature. The amount was sickening. I didn't sign it. I didn't ask for it. But someone had submitted the initial application using my information. Someone who knew enough details to look legitimate. Someone who assumed I'd clean up the mess like always. I drove straight to my parents' house to talk to Mason face to face. He was in the garage tinkering with a motorcycle he'd bought with money he absolutely did not have. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't even try to soften it. He rolled his eyes. "Dude, it's not a big deal. I needed a starter loan. Your credit's better. You should be happy you can help." That sentence, that casual, dismissive, selfish sentence, landed harder than anything he'd ever done before. For the first time in my life, something inside me quietly clicked into place. I wasn't just hurt, I was done. And he had no idea what that meant yet. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying his tone, his smirk, the way he talked like my entire life was just an extension of his convenience. For years I'd told myself that setting boundaries would fix things, that he'd eventually respect them. But Mason didn't respect boundaries. He collected them like speed bumps to roll over. The next morning I pulled my credit report. I expected something bad. I didn't expect this. 2 credit inquiries I didn't recognize. A store card opened 4 months ago in my name. A phone plan added to an account I'd canceled years earlier. My chest tightened as I scrolled, each line confirming what I already knew. Mason had been helping himself to my identity like it was a communal snack bowl. The emotional hit was weird. It wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was quiet, hollow, like the sound a house makes after everyone has moved out. I wasn't angry at first. I was tired, bone-deep tired, and that exhaustion made everything unbelievably clear. I needed to protect myself, not argue, not reason, not hope he'd change. Protect. I spent the morning calling companies, freezing my credit, adding security alerts, changing passwords. Every call chipped away at the version of me who used to give him the benefit of the doubt. The more I cleaned up his mess, the more I realized how many years I'd wasted giving him access to parts of my life he had no right to. When I finished, I drove back to my parents' house. Not to confront him again, I was done with that, but to confirm something. As soon as I parked, I could hear Mason laughing inside, loud and carefree, telling some story about a guy he outsmarted at work. He talked like nothing touched him, like consequences were things that happened to other people. I walked in quietly. Our mom smiled at me, relieved I was visiting. Dad was watching TV. Mason was at the kitchen counter, eating cereal out of the mixing bowl like a king who didn't have subjects, just suckers. He glanced up. "Yo, you calm now?" I didn't answer. Instead, I asked Mom if Mason had said anything about the loan application or the accounts in my name. She frowned. "Loan? What loan?" Mason's spoon clattered against the bowl. "Dude, seriously? You're dragging them into this?" He sounded offended. Offended. Like I'd crossed a line by revealing what he had done. I told them everything. Not dramatically, just facts. Dates. Accounts. What I'd found on my credit report. What the building manager said. The loan application. Mom's face drained. Dad muted the TV. Mason tried to cut in, tried to spin it, but the more he talked, the more guilty he sounded. He bounced between excuses. "I was going to pay it back. You said I could use your info once. Why are you freaking out?" None of which made sense. When he realized they weren't buying it, his frustration snapped into anger. "Oh, come on, he's being dramatic. It's not like the loan went through. You always overreact." I felt something inside shift again. Not anger, not sadness, just resolve, cold and calm. "I'm not overreacting," I said quietly. "I'm just done." Mason scoffed. "Done with what? Helping your own brother? You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "I think I've been enabling you." The room went still. He opened his mouth like he had a comeback ready, but nothing came out. For once, he didn't have a script. I left without another word. In the car, my hands were steady. My thoughts were clear. I didn't want revenge that burned bridges. I wanted accountability. I wanted distance. I wanted my life back. And if Mason thought I'd walk away quietly, he was about to learn how wrong he was. Because there's a difference between being passive and being patient. And I had been patient for a very, very long time. The plan didn't come to me in a dramatic flash. It formed piece by piece, built from years of watching Mason twist every situation to his advantage. If I confronted him directly, he'd lie. If I warned him, he'd hide evidence or spin a story to our parents about how I was making things up again. The only way to handle someone like him was to let him reveal himself on his own, just with the right audience watching. So I started gathering everything quietly. The loan application email chain, the credit inquiries, screenshots of accounts opened in my name, the messages where Mason joked about using my address for convenience. Even the building manager wrote a short statement after I explained what happened. Apparently Mason had shown up twice that week asking about my mail. I didn't embellish anything, didn't add dramatic commentary, just facts, because facts were more damaging to Mason than any accusation could be. The next step was subtle, distance. I stopped responding to his texts unless absolutely necessary. When he asked if he could borrow my car again, I said no without explaining. When he commented on me freezing my credit, clearly annoyed that he couldn't open anything new, I didn't engage. That alone threw him off. Mason relied on my predictable softness. Without it, he didn't know where to push next. A week later, he tried anyway. I got a call from a collections agency asking if I'd recently authorized a purchase for nearly $900. I told them I hadn't, and before the rep could finish reading the details, I already knew who was behind it. Mason was escalating because he felt his access slipping. He always pushed harder when he sensed boundaries. That was the moment everything aligned. I filed a police report, not dramatic, not accusatory, just informational. Identity theft, unauthorized account use, credit fraud attempts. The officer was patient and professional. He said something that stuck with me. Most people wait too long to set limits with family. You're doing the responsible thing. Responsible, not vindictive, not cruel, just responsible. I didn't want Mason arrested. I wanted a record, something official, something he couldn't charm or manipulate his way out of. Something that proved this wasn't harmless sibling stuff, like he always claimed. But the real turning point wasn't the report, it was my parents. For years, they'd treated Mason like a fragile project they needed to repair. They excused him, defended him, begged me to be patient with your brother. But once they saw the organized stack of evidence I'd collected, dates, screenshots, emails, statements, they both went silent in a way I had never seen before. Dad looked heartbroken. Mom looked angry. Not at me, at Mason. A day later, Dad called a family meeting at their house. Mason didn't know I was coming until he saw me walk in with a folder. His jaw tightened. He immediately tried to turn it into a joke, asking if I'd brought homework. Nobody laughed. Mom asked him directly if he had used my identity to open accounts. He dodged. Dad asked again. Mason rolled his eyes, then tried to blame me. Said I was dramatic, controlling, making a big deal out of nothing. That was when Mom slid the stack of printed screenshots across the table. His face changed. Not guilt, panic. The kind people show when they realize they aren't the smartest person in the room anymore. He tried to argue. Then he tried to explain. Then he tried to cry. None of it worked. Dad told him he had two choices: get serious help and cut all financial ties with me, or move out and figure out life on his own. Mason stared at me like I had betrayed him. But for the first time in our lives, I didn't look away. I didn't soften. I didn't offer a way out. I just said, "You did this to yourself." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. Mom jumped. Dad didn't move. I left soon after, not triumphant, not smug, just relieved. For once, Mason's mess wasn't mine to fix. And the quiet I felt driving home was something I hadn't felt in years. A calm that came from knowing the next steps were already unfolding. Steps Mason didn't even see yet. The fallout didn't happen overnight. Mason never crashed in loud, dramatic ways. His life unraveled slowly, the same way he'd chipped away at mine for years. At first, he tried to pretend nothing had changed. He stopped by my parents' house like usual, acting wounded, hinting that they'd come to their senses eventually. But they didn't budge. They didn't hand him money. They didn't offer him a spare room. They didn't soften the way they always had. And without that safety net, the cracks showed fast. He tried to open another account using my information, but the credit freeze stopped him cold. The alert system notified me instantly, and I forwarded it to the officer handling my case. A week later, Mason received a letter, official, unavoidable, with the state seal at the top, informing him he was now a named party in an identity theft investigation. He texted me the moment he got it. "What the hell is this? Fix it." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling absolutely nothing. Then I typed a single response: "I can't fix what I didn't do." That was the last time I answered him. From there, he spiraled. He lost his job. Apparently, he'd been borrowing money from coworkers and forgetting to pay them back. His roommates kicked him out after he racked up charges on their shared accounts. For years, he'd lived off charm, shortcuts, and other people's patience. And now every bridge he'd burned was catching up to him at once. My parents struggled with it at first, not because they disagreed with the boundaries, but because it forced them to confront the version of Mason they'd refused to see. Mom cried a lot. Dad went quiet. But neither of them blamed me. If anything, they apologized for years of asking me to tolerate things no one should tolerate. It wasn't dramatic. It was tired, sincere, and overdue. Eventually, Mason moved 2 states away to live with a cousin who didn't know his history. We still hear bits and pieces through family channels. None of it is good. None of it surprises me. But none of it is my responsibility anymore. The part that surprised me was how my own life changed once the chaos stopped. I got better sleep. I stopped checking my mailbox with anxiety in my chest. I saved more money because I wasn't quietly covering his emergencies. My apartment felt like mine again, peaceful in a way I hadn't realized I'd been craving. And I learned something important. Revenge isn't always a grand gesture or a dramatic takedown. Sometimes it's just stopping the cycle. Sometimes it's letting someone face the consequences they've dodged their whole life. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. I didn't destroy Mason. I simply stepped out of the way while the truth caught up to him. As for me, I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm rebuilding the parts of my life he used to drain. I'm learning what boundaries actually look like when they're enforced, not just spoken. And when people ask about my brother now, I tell them the truth. I hope he figures himself out. I really do. But he'll have to do it without borrowing my name ever again.